Hello, welcome to the kitchen. This is Angela and I'm the Inquisitive Farmwife. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. You never really know what I'm going to be doing, but usually you'll find me in the kitchen. And today is Friendship Friday. If you're not familiar with that, down below I will have a playlist linked. There is a group of people on YouTube that are putting together some amazing recipes using the Amish Friendship Starter. And again, if you're not familiar with it, go check it out. We have lots of recipes explaining what it is and what we do with it. But today, I am going to make some meat buns. It's kind of a recipe I'm making up on my own because I do that a lot. And if I can, I will have it written down in my blog where I share my recipes with you, because my family hates when I make something good and never remember how to make it again. So these videos are to remind me how I do this. And I want to make a double batch today, so I will try to remember to also make the single batch version in my recipe. So without further ado, let's zoom in and get started on this delicious project. First thing I'm going to need to do is mix up my milk. The cream has all come to the top. It's a few days old, so you can see it's very, very thick. So normally I would pull that off and make butter out of it, or maybe some ice cream. But I'm just going to leave this full fat for today. And I just want to get my whisk in here and mix it really well. So if you have never had farm fresh cow's milk, when it hasn't been homogenized, the cream will separate, and so you need to mix it together. I'm going to take a half a cup. Remember, this is a double batch. We're doing the cheaters version today because my Friendship Starter, this is actually feed day, so it's not super bubbly and active, so we're going to use yeast, and I need to warm this milk up, so I'm going to put a half a cup in the microwave. In a slightly larger bowl, I'm going to take a cup of milk and a half a stick of butter, and I'm going to put this in the microwave to melt 30-45 seconds, and then just let it sit, and the butter will finish melting. Grabbing the milk that we had from before, I'm using a thermometer. Just give it a quick stir, and I'm gonna let it set for just a minute here. And I want to make sure that I'm not over 110 degrees, which it looks like we're setting right at about 90 degrees. So this is perfect. And I want to put equivalent to 2 packets of yeast, which would be, let's see, 4.5 tablespoons. No, 4.5 teaspoons, which is would be 2.5 tablespoons is, now I'm confusing myself. Okay, 2.25 teaspoons, which we're doubling, would be 4.5 teaspoons, so that'd be 1.5 tablespoons, something like that. But I went ahead and put in 2 just because my yeast, I worry that it's a little older, and I like to give it a little extra oomph. So what I'm going to do is we're going to stir this in, and we're going to let this bloom. So I'm going to let this just sit aside for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes while I start working on getting the other ingredients ready. So we'll get my mixing bowl ready, and I'm going to grab my starter, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get 2 cups of starter. Although it has not been fed in a few days, it still is, to me, a fairly happy, bubbly starter. Okay, so here's 1 cup. And our 2nd cup. Tuck this away. And in a separate bowl, I decided to get out my bread flour today. And we're going to start with 3 cups of flour. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do 4 because I know we'll use it. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt to this. And then I'm just going to kind of mix this together. I'll set this aside. Okay, so the yeast has proofed, and basically it has started bubbling up, so we know it's ready. We will add it into our friendship starter. We also want to add our buttermilk mixture. I'm just going to kind of give this a little stir to kind of bring it all to the same temperature. I'm a little more careful, you know, with my yeast and things because you don't want them to get too warm. Next, I'm going to take about half of this flour mixture and put in here. And now we're going to grab our mixer with the dough hook. And on low speed, I'm just going to kind of bring this together, slowly adding the rest of the flour. Now this is going to be a very sticky dough. This is where experience is what tells you what to do next. And if you're new to this, just don't be afraid. You have to experiment and you have to try new things before you learn. So I'm going to let this go a couple of minutes because it's not pulling away from the side yet, and I need it to do that. There we go. We got to make sure we get that in there. Now, you can stop your machine and pull away from the side every little bit. But I can tell this is very, very sticky, and it could be the weather. That makes a huge difference too. I know I need to add probably a good cup or 2 more. So just a little at a time, we're going to add slowly until it kind of all comes together. Still looking a little sticky on top, so I'm going to go ahead and use that full extra cup. Now, if I put too much of this in here, that's okay. You can add a little more milk or an egg. So did you know that when your onions sprout, when you forget about them and they sprout, you can still use this part as a green onion? You sure can. And that's exactly what we're going to do. While that dough is kneading, I am going to go ahead and cut up this as a green onion. And I'm going to add this to the dough because I think it'll just take it up another level. And I wish I had fresh garlic, but I do not. So I'm also going to grab some of the powdered garlic, and we're going to add that in here too. I love to incorporate seasonings into my breads. Something else that's fun to add in is cheese, peppers. Stop. And it's still very, very sticky. Okay, so while our dough is rising, let's go ahead and prep some veggies. I'm going to start with, let's start with these carrots. I want to peel the skins off today. They're getting a little older, so they're just kind of doesn't appeal to me as much. I just want to make sure I chop off the end I'm going to be using. And I've got this slicer, and I just want to get a really thin slice on this carrot. You could shred or chunk if you want. Oh, that was too thin, I guess. I just want it to be able to cook up really nicely. And I've got a pound of hamburger that we're gonna put for the meat. So I'd say to every pound of hamburger, you'd use about 4 carrots, 4 potatoes, and 1 onion. Okay, so we have some potatoes. I'm just gonna kind of roughly peel them just to kind of see what's underneath. We don't mind the skins. I always scrub them really well, but just to make sure there's no bad spots, and it looks like we do have a black spot. They're a little older. Almost kind of want to sprout on me, so make sure I cut off any of those bad spots. And the potatoes, I'm just going to kind of cube them in a small dice. Try to get it as even as you can, just because it cooks better that way, but it doesn't have to be perfect. This is the filling for our meat buns. And now we're down to our onion. And you've heard me say it before. You want to save the peelings from the onion and the carrot and the potatoes. You can use those to make stock with. Put them in your compost pile. The potato skins you can actually boil and give to your chickens. They just don't do well with raw potato. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut the onion in half. There's a bad spot there. And I'm going to leave the root intact, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to kind of dice it. And then now we have our onions that, you know, the layers are here, and they'll make a diced onion. I'm just going to throw this right on top of the onion, or the carrot. Over here I have my large cast iron skillet where I put a little bit of oil in, and I've let this kind of heat up a little bit. And I've got a pound of ground hamburger thawed. You could use sausage. You could use ground turkey or chicken. I suppose you could probably even use pre-cooked shredded meat too. Now that we've kind of got that sear started here. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add in our onions and carrots and the potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and put some salt on everything. That'll kind of let the veggies and the meat bring out natural juices. It's called sweating. I also am going to use some more garlic powder. We really love garlic. I'm sad when I realized that I didn't have fresh. And of course, pepper. And we're just going to keep an eye on this, and we're going to cook it until the veggies are soft and the hamburger has been browned. But remember, we're going to bake this, so it doesn't have to be fully cooked. We need a little more liquid and we need a little more flavor, so I'm going to add in whatever's left in this bottle of the Worcestershire sauce, which is maybe a teaspoon if I'm lucky, but that's just going to give it a little extra flavor, a little more depth. If I had some red wine, that would be a good thing to add in here also and let it reduce. If you have any bouillon, maybe even tomato paste would be good in here. I might look and see if I have any tomato paste or tomato sauce. Okay, it looks like everything is now softened, and so all I need to do is let this cool while the bread finishes rising. 2 hours or so, and we have doubled. And it's a nice, fluffy, beautiful dough, as I anticipated it might be. And what I want to do is I'm going to divide this, I think, 12 different ways. So if you want to go get out a scale and divide it like that, go for it. I'm not going to worry about it today. So to me, it's just I divided it by 4, and then I'll divide it by 3. Some will be bigger, some will be smaller. It'll be fine. And I don't even think we're going to need any flour today. I'm just going to, with my hands, spread this out in a circle. We've got our cooled meat mixture, putting, I don't know, this is a 1/2 cup measurement. It's not quite full, so I don't know, 1/3 to 1/2 cup in here. We're going to bring it up, pinching everything to make sure we get it closed. And this is it. Get a baking sheet to put them. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees. I have all 12 of my meat rolls put together. Once the oven is preheated, then I'll bake these probably 30 minutes. I don't want to over bake them because probably about 3/4 of these are going to go in, at least half are going to go in the freezer for another time. And I almost forgot, I want to put an egg wash on here. So there's different ways you can use it. You can use the whole egg with a little milk. You can use just the whites. You can use just the yolks. You can use just water. You can put water in with your egg whites. I have an egg white here that is from a goose egg. So, you know, we'll say equal to maybe 2 egg whites. And I'm just going to take my brush. Okay, we're not going to judge which brush I'm using here. I couldn't find my regular one. So we're just going to brush this over the top. I could have added water to it. I could have, like I said, add milk. But I have this available. So we're going to use this all. It's going to be plenty. I had planned to actually make an omelet with it. And I thought, no, I want to get a nice, beautiful crust on these buns, rolls, whatever you want to call them. So very excited to give these a try. We will be having these later this evening for our supper, and the rest will go in the freezer for another day. So I like to just grab a freezer safe bag if you've got them and label what it is and whether there's cooking directions or it's already cooked, so I know all I have to do is warm it up. Then I like to take and wrap them each individually in foil. That works really great if you want to put them in the oven or the air fryer. You can just leave it right in there. Get as much air as you can out of the bag, and it's ready for the freezer. Thanks for coming along on another Friendship Friday. I hope that you enjoyed what I brought you this time, and I can't wait to see you on the next video.